Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the 9th Annual Yes Fest. First of all, I would like you to take out your phone and turn it off. You shouldn't have your phone out from this point on, so turn it off, put it away. You can look forward to those notifications when the assembly is over. We come together today, just like we have for the last 9 years, in an effort not only to remember how Yes Fest began, but also to look forward to the future, our future. It is a tradition in many cultures to say the names often of those that we have lost to help to keep their memory alive. In 2013, we lost 3 Boardman graduates, Frank Devanzo, Aaron Trell, and Danny Watkins. This tragedy brought us together as a family, as tragedies often do, and Yes Fest was born. At this time, I would like to take a moment of silence for Frank, Aaron, and Danny. Today, as we look to the future, I am asking all of you to remember just a little bit more of the past. The original mission of the first Yes Fest was to have our students say no to drugs by saying yes to something positive. You see, every single one of us has found ourselves at one time or another where we are feeling as though things are not going the way we want them to go. Perhaps we feel helpless, hopeless, unworthy, different, ashamed, or just sad or depressed. We are here today to tell you that you're not alone. We're here today to continue our conversation about mental health and wellness and how we can help ourselves and each other, and in turn, say yes to the future. With all of that being said, I'd like to introduce you to somebody today who is a 2012 graduate of Boardman High School. Mercedes Wallace is here today because she has a very special story to tell. Knowing Sadie the little bit that I do, I would tell you that she is kind, she is intelligent, she is insightful, she is a thoughtful force to be reckoned with, and she is an all-around genuine human being. I can also say that there's really not a lot I can tell you about her to introduce you that she wouldn't say better herself. So without further ado, Sadie Wallace.
All right, you guys aren't allowed your phones, but I am. Also, I need it. I'm good, but I'm not that good. I need the notes still. How are you guys doing today? Okay, it is 9 a.m., and the last group was louder than that. How are we doing today? That's better. That's a lot better. If you guys would have bet me $100 what all of you were going to say to that, I would have assumed it would be a collective good, which isn't a bad thing. It's our trained response. I just find it interesting that often our response to questions about our feelings is usually the easy one, not the honest one. I'm working to unlearn that, and so can you. But first, I'm going to tell you what I tell my own students. There's a lot more of you than there is of them. I am lucky enough to have around 60 to 64 students at a time. I run a leadership and development cohort at The Ohio State University, which I'm told is kind of a big deal, the university, not me. But I tell them there's a lot of rooms that you're going to need to be on in, that polished, perfect version of yourself. This room, and any room with me, is not a room that needs to happen in. And I realize that most of you are like, well, we just met you, we don't know you, and that's totally fair, but we're gonna get there. First, I wanna play a game. Are we all familiar with Heads Up 7-Up? Cool, we get the concept? We're gonna play my version, which is Heads Up 7-Up for your feelings, which sounds like a nightmare. It's okay, even to me, but we're gonna bear with it. We're gonna get through it. Okay, so what I need you all to do, if you feel safe and comfortable to do so, Close your eyes and bow your heads. I promise I'm not leading you into a prayer. Just give me a minute. This only works if we're quiet. Okay, thank you. Look how fast that was. Okay, can we take a collective breath in through the nose and out through the mouth? I want you to not worry about what the people next to you are doing, the people behind you, what your friends are doing, and answer these questions from the place that is only true to you. Raise your hand if you've had a good week. Nothing you would change, nothing you'd do differently. Overall, it's been good and you're happy. Okay? Now, raise your hand if you've had an okay week. A few things you'd change, a few things you wouldn't. Overall, it's been okay. Now, for this last one, I want you to know that nothing had to have happened for you to feel this way. But raise your hand if you've had a bad week. Definitely some things you change, definitely some things you would do differently, and overall you just don't feel like yourself. Okay. See, that wasn't terrible. You guys can all open your eyes. If you answered honestly, you all just identified your feelings by 9 a.m. Okay, I have one more game. You can keep your eyes open for this one. It's one more version of just raise your hand when I say so. Raise your hand if in the last year you've said something resembling the phrase, "I can't wait to get out of here." Raise your hand if you've said something resembling the phrase, "I can't wait to get out of here" in the last 6 months. In the last 24 hours. I was every single one of you. It was not that long ago that my friends and I passive-aggressively sat in the same seats you guys are in. And I don't mean that in a I'm the girl that can't let go of high school kind of way, because honestly, high school was not my thing. I was every version of myself except myself while I was here. And I don't mean it in a I don't want to grow up sort of way, because honestly, I think the growing up thing is pretty cool. I mean it in a I just got an invite for our 10-year reunion, so it really wasn't that long ago. But I also got that invite on Facebook, so I guess that shows my age a little bit that we're still using Facebook. And although I'm 28, this place raised me. I grew up here. And when I say I grew up here, I mean I grew up here in this auditorium and 3 minutes down the road next to St. Charles Church. And I grew up a little bit in Mill Creek Park, a lot of it at one of my best friend's houses off Glenwood, and mostly around kitchen tables of families who were not my own. I've always been the runner. I'm really good at it. But the thing is, that thing that you're running from, it comes for you, and you can't outrun it. And that feeling that you're chasing, you won't ever touch it until you work through it. This place tends to have a slow burn, and often you'll still come back to it. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that now, a decade later, at 28, I still come back here to find myself. I still come back here to die on a hill of Coco's Pizza Rolls and Handel's ice cream. I still come back and force everyone I know to go to Antone's to split a monkey salad and a literal brick of fried cheese with me. I still come back looking for myself in the corner booths of all the dive bars I swore I hated. I still swing my legs off the same dock at Lake Newport. And I still come back to hide in the same dugouts that my friends and I used to smoke in. I just think we have better coping mechanisms now. And yes, sometimes I still sit in cemeteries because growing up and getting older means that you don't get to take everybody with you. And although this all sounds like I'm being sponsored by Youngstown Food, which I'm not, unless you know a guy, what I mean is you can't outgrow where you come from. And at some point, you're not going to want to. So how do we use it? Let's start with who I am. Cool. My name is Mercedes Wallace, or Sadie, either one. First and foremost, my favorite title and most important is Dwayne's daughter. Second, can we get a collective awe for my dog, Miles? Thank you. Second, I am an Amazon best-selling author and poet of a book titled One Without the Other. Third, I am the Assistant Director for Buckeye Leadership Fellows, which is that program I just told you all about for Ohio State. I'm the owner of Miles, and amongst other titles, I am an advocator, an activist, and at base, I am a storyteller. You see, I think at the root of everything we do is storytelling. It's the lens through what everyone views the world through, whether that's subconsciously or consciously. It shapes everything that we do, and I believe the biggest impact that we can make starts with the stories we tell, most importantly, our own. First, I'm going to hit you with a few numbers because I think they're cool. Humans are 22 times as likely to remember facts if told through stories. This is 2022 data, so this is very recent. We're hardwired to lean in moments of storytelling, and we start this from young ages with the stories that we tell children to teach them morals. A couple books I grew up on, but the Bible is a great example of this too. I think that we see this even in marketing as you get older, that businesses have trained professionals simply around brand and storytelling for the companies. In business and in personal, the way that we tell stories is necessity, and I've made a career out of doing both. Now, let me tell you a story. Two facts that I think are important about me is I was born on April Fool's Day, and I have always loved playing hide and seek. My mother was a housekeeper for most of my childhood, and she'd take me to work with her, which meant that my brother and I became really, really good at knowing how to clean a bathroom, but also equally as good at occupying ourselves. We spent hours playing hide and seek in this mansion off Canfield. I am a proud welfare child. I am the child of a single mother household. I am a proud child of a mother who knows how to stretch a dollar without ever making you think it was thin. I am also the proud child of a mother who tried her best, but sometimes her best still meant that we would end up in therapy. My childhood was not easy, and I spent most of my younger years finding places to hide in. Whether that's books, friendships, hobbies, the garage bands that I forced my neighbors to join with me, and mostly a lot of versions of myself that didn't quite fit. So I did what a lot of you are looking forward to doing, and I ran. I told myself that as soon as I got to college, I could start over, be whatever I wanted to be, and nothing from my childhood would matter because I would get a fresh start. And then the summer that I turned 19, when my friends and I came home for that summer, someone that we loved very much would be murdered. I believe holistically in saying names of people in rooms that they are not in. I wouldn't be in any of the rooms that I have been in if it wasn't for people that said my name. And so, I'd like to introduce you to Danny Watkins. The how and why and the specifics of what happened are not important, but what is important is that you know him. He is funny. He has the bluest eyes I've ever seen, and his cheeks are almost always red. Half because he's usually blushing, and half because rosacea. He thinks he can play the guitar. He loves Red Hot Chili Peppers. He loves baseball. He mostly loves his Firebird, but not if the weather's perfect enough for him to drive it, because then he won't be touching it. And mostly he loves beating all of our friends to the corner booth at the Petrie. We didn't know it at the time, but Danny was the glue that held our friend group together. There's something really special about being not yet 20 in the way that you think that you're invincible. And in a lot of ways, you are. But there's a special kind of shock factor that happens when you realize that being human also comes with loss. There's no rule book for what happens when you bury one of your own while you're a teenager. We all did our best to figure out how to navigate that and get through, and for me, that looked like I gave his eulogy, I packed up my childhood bedroom for the very last time, and I left to not return. I buried that grief somewhere so far deep and hid it, and I convinced myself that it wasn't even there. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Dwayne Livingston Wallace. I say his middle name because he hates it, and it's my favorite way to screw with him. He is my father, he is my best friend, he has everything good and true about me, and he has everything I know to be of unconditional love. He loves Cleveland sports, a bad PBR, a good tequila, and an even worse dirty joke. He has a special knack for making everyone feel seen, and he'll remember your name 30 seconds after meeting you. I'm terrible with names, so I'm working on doing better at this. He spent most of my childhood and his boxing, so it should come as no surprise that he is a fighter. It's important to me that you all get to meet him through my eyes and not the story I'm about to tell. Plus, I need a drink of water. So I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to watch this next video, and then we'll continue.
This is a place where I don't feel alone. This is a place where I feel at home.
It's 12:30 on Sunday. Just checking on you. Haven't talked to you in a few days. Just want to make sure you're okay. I love you. I'll talk to you.
Thank you guys for watching that. When I was 24, he was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. He would spend the next 2 weeks on life support and in a coma where they would mainly tell us he wouldn't make it through to the next day. Because he is a Wallace and we tend to fight mainly when we are already on the ground and also because we refuse to lose, he woke up. He laughed at a diagnosis then, and then he laughed at it for the following 2 years. We would spend those 2 years making really, really big moments out of really tiny things. Like getting ice cream and milkshakes, like getting Arby's curly fries after cancer scans, really bad Chinese takeout, me baking, him tasting it. Because I can tell you that at the end of everything, the big stuff doesn't matter. It's always going to be the tiny moments that you think about the most. In February of the pandemic, it spread to his brain, and he moved in with me. I stopped working to be his full-time caretaker, and by stop working, I mean the pandemic hit, so I got fired from my job, which left me with a lot of time to be his full-time caretaker. On November 20th, we laid in his hospital bed at the front bedroom of my house, and we made an entire Thanksgiving menu strictly built around the cheesecake that he wanted to eat that day. On November 22nd, the morning of, he would throw a brain clot. That afternoon, my brother, my sister-in-law, and my partner and I would sit around his bedside while he fought off multiple seizures over the next 9 hours before he would finally pass away hand in hand with me. 2 weeks later, my grandmother would pass away and I would say goodbye over FaceTime because the pandemic meant that I didn't get to be there in person. That April Fool's thing is starting to make a little bit more sense, isn't it? Okay, I promise the rest of this gets lighter, or it turns off entirely. Okay, how do we take all of that and use it? For me, I think it starts with the lens that we view the world through. There's no career, friendship, or idea that I have picked for myself that I wouldn't have chosen without the things that I've been through. I've always sought to be an advocator because I didn't have an advocator. I've always wanted to be an activist for communities that didn't have it because I didn't have activism. I now tell stories because the way that we tell those stories matters, especially to the people that are no longer here, and being able to tell those stories properly gives them dignity. Oscar Wilde has a quote that I think is really important. It's a longer version, but what he says is that being a human as a verb and not a noun is a privilege. What this means to me and what I think is appropriate is that we are not the thing that happens to us. We get to be the thing that happens to the world. That's the privilege. We can't control what happened to us, but we do get to choose how we move forward with it. For me, this has meant stopping the running and the hiding. Confronting what I've been through and taking ownership over my own story gave me an opportunity to start being a more authentic version of myself. This also meant that I reconsidered a career and I got serious about the legacies I wanted to build, both of my own and for the people I've lost. I wrote a book and I published it on my dad's birthday in honor of him. And I now work with children to do leadership and development personal training for the rest of their college careers to help foster something that I didn't get growing up. The idea of if you don't tell your story, others will tell it for you. I spent years protecting myself from being involved in things that might hurt me, which often let friends in my life not feel like they had an opportunity to get close to me. There was always just a sort of disconnect. Even as close as I would get to them, they never could feel like they were fully close enough to me. And although that survival tactic helped me, it didn't lend me anything except a little bit of isolation. Letting people in is still a process, but I am now talking about my feelings on a stage to a bunch of strangers, so I feel like there's progress there. How do we move from that surviving mode to living? Our bodies and our brains are really, really cool things, and they do a lot to protect us, often by throwing us into survival mode without us even realizing it. And although that's fair and it's helpful, it's not a way to live your life fully. I spent a really, really long time trying to move past hurt without ever feeling it. I thought that if I just kept moving, I would outrun it, or worse yet, I would stop and break entirely. That is the survival mode. I stopped running eventually, and none of those things happened. It gave the community around me that I had built for myself an actual chance to catch me. As we talk about the legacy that we want to create and you all look towards the lives that you're going to be leading when you leave here, we get to take all of the things that have happened to you and you get to decide whether or not it has power over you moving forward. And I don't mean that in a you get to be stronger than the thing that happened, because I do kind of think that I do kind of think that that is crap. However, I think there's so much power in giving the power back to yourself to take ownership over the thing, but first you have to feel it. So 1, change your mind. Feel free to change your mind 100 times. We are all changing things and everything changes. And if we're lucky, we also grow, which means that our desires are going to change as we grow with it. Be open to new possibilities. I've changed my career a dozen times. I spent 7 years working in politics and I love it, but I wouldn't be in any of the positions that I am in now if I wasn't open to the fact that I changed, and that was not easy for me. It came mostly from pushing from people in this front row that were honest with me about the fact that I no longer wanted to do the political thing and that maybe there was another world that I should be open to. 2, that leads me into build your chosen family. My mom used to say this to me all the time, and I sound the most like her right now when I say that you are a reflection of the 5 people that you spend your time with. I am so lucky, and it took me years to find people that are really a reflection of me, and I chose people that are better than me. They are always going to be a lot cooler than I am, and they push me to be the best version of myself. They bring me home to myself every single time that I get lost. In these past few years especially, they're very literally the reason I'm alive. 3, check in with your gut, just like we did at the beginning of this. I know it feels silly and I know it's obnoxious, but truly if you're answering questions from that place of who are you authentically, what do you actually want, not what your friends want, not what you think is the best decision, not what your parents told you should do, you're the only person that has to live with those decisions for the rest of your life. It's important that you know how to check in with yourself, or else you're going to get lost in everything else that's moving around you. And lastly, know that you can always come home to find yourself. I still do it pretty often, and sometimes I'm not looking, sometimes I just need a place to break and not be anything. Youngstown has a way of allowing you to do that. Lean on it. I'm throwing this up here. I know most of your guys' phones are off, but I do also really, really love to connect mostly with students. I think there is so much potential in the worlds that you guys are going to leave after, and I'm always open to talking about what that looks like for you. I'm lucky enough to have a few nieces and a nephew, and in my book, I wrote a poem that's dedicated to them. I didn't realize it until I'm looking at it in hindsight, but it's all of the things that I wish somebody would have said to me when I was their age. It's all of the things that I'll say to them for the rest of their lives, and it's what I would say to any one of you. I'm going to read it for you if that's cool with you guys. Yeah? I'm asking for consent as if you guys have anywhere to go except sit here, but I'm going to read it to you anyway. Okay. It's titled For Eden, for Zoe, and for Jaden. If I could tell you something, I'll tell you that really I don't know anything. No one does. But here's some things that I do know to be true. I know that bodies are 60% water, which means we're built to flow. This life can feel rigid, but you don't have to. I want you to change your mind 100 times. I know you'll sound like a broken record, but baby, ask why. Ask it over and over until you understand, because your brain is so big and there is always more to learn. Only say, I don't know if you're following with, but I can find out. No is a complete sentence, period. I want you to trust your gut as your guiding source, and if it feels broken, know that your parents and I will always lead you home to yourself. They have always been my favorite compass. I want you to look at the world through a telescope, which is to say, most times it's bigger than you. But that doesn't make it less important, it just means there's more parts to the whole. That even when it's dark, you still shine, and you'll always be my favorite solar system. We are all growing things, and growth takes time and water and good soil, so don't be afraid to get a little muddy. I won't let you win in games because you're a child, as your parents will remind me. I think it's important that you learn that things aren't handed to you, and also I'm a sore loser. I hope you all always feel how loved you are. I hope you drink everything dry from this world because this place will drain you without your permission more times than you can count. And when that happens, I won't always have the words to fix it, but I'll be there with open arms and probably a lot of wine or tea, depending on your age, and those tend to soften the blow. When the world shakes you for things that don't make sense, I want you to know your voice matters. Raise it. Shout with it. And if you ever find that you are the loudest one in the room, give the mic to someone else. You will always have the power to strengthen or break someone. Be careful with how you're using it. I want you to say you're sorry, but never for your feelings. I want you to say I love you openly and freely to everyone you know and mainly yourself. Occasionally, this world is going to tell you what you are because of your age, your sex, or the melanin in your skin, and it will be easy to lose yourself in that. Piece by piece until you can't even see the lost and found poster anymore. Know that you will always be worth more than what others decide for you. Know that only you can decide what you are, and you'll always be more complex than a headline could ever fit you into. I want you to know how strong your parents are, because the same hands that built you built my spine too. They've carried me over heartbreaks and floorboards and pieced me back together when I didn't think it was possible. You will be a toolbox, capable to fix yourself, but strong enough to know when to ask for a second hand. This was a lesson I learned much too late and after too much pushing from your parents, but they stood by anyway, watched me make destruction of architecture, and then held the dustpan when I needed it. I hope you get to be a child, lost in wonder and amazement. I hope you always treat the world like cotton candy, sweet and light, but it can get a bit sticky. You are beautiful, but it has nothing on your heart. Use it like a mirror, use it like a torch, use it like your genetics, use it like an atlas, and follow it home. Thank you, guys. Thank you for sharing space with me today. I hope you all find power in telling your story, even the parts that you never say out loud, and be kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Sadie. That was very good. At this time, I would like to take a moment to thank all of our financial sponsors for YesFest who are listed on the back of our t-shirt, as well as the multitude of people who are behind the scenes making this day possible. I'd also like to thank a few special guests, Angel and Mike Trell and Mindy DiPietro for attending. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Mr. Kale, Mr. Burns, Mr. Hollabaugh, BSTN, and all the student helpers for our current video feed and all things Performing Arts Center related. In closing, Spartans, I challenge you to be self-reflective about what you have heard here today. Who is telling your story? What story do you want to be told? Not only is it up to you to know when you need help, but it is also up to you to help others when they need it. Helping each other is what we should do for each other each and every day as Spartans, but most importantly as human beings. Thank you all for your attendance. The bell's going to ring shortly for third period, so if you have anything at second period, go get that. Have a good day, and go Spartans.